Alright, welcome back to the channel. We starting this new thing called Was It Worth It? Where I review stuff that I already seen before that I just didn't review on the channel. So what we're going to do is talk about whatever the movie or the series was, see if it add up to all the hype that's around it. We're going to rate it on 5 categories: story, structure, character, pacing, entertainment, and production. So we're going to see if it checked those 5 boxes, give it a little we're gonna give it a little flaming symbol if it checked those boxes, if the story structure was good, if the character development was good, or if the characters were memorable or just like throwaway characters that you're not even gonna remember the name or what they were about or what they did in the movie. We're gonna look at pacing, if the movie was moving too fast, movie was moving too slow, if there wasn't enough action, if it's an action film, but if there wasn't enough action in it to keep up with the storyline and the structure, or if it was like a horror movie, was there enough jump scares or was it just a slow burn? As far as entertainment, we're just gonna see if whatever it was entertaining. If you had to go to the movies to see it, was it worth paying that money for the movie and the popcorn and the snacks or whatever it was? Shit was gonna run you $100. Was this shit worth $100 to go see? And the last thing is production. Just if the graphics was good, CGI was good, if the physical sets were good, if the props they used looked like bullshit. So we're gonna rate everything on these 5 categories, and just I'm gonna give you my opinion. Was it worth it? You can take whoever else's opinion you want to, but in my opinion, I'm gonna let you know, was it worth it to me. With this first one, we're going to do Spider-Man Brand New Day. Alright, for Spider-Man Brand New Day, the reason I like this movie, I think it was one of the best Marvel movies that came out recently, other than Thunderbolts. The only reason I like Thunderbolts because it wasn't like a real over-the-top superhero action movie. The basis of the movie was, street-level anti-heroes coming together to create the new Avengers. It was more everybody battling with their darker selves and what happened, what the regrets that they have to live with. Now with Spider-Man Brand New Day, we coming off of, I think, a couple months or maybe a year or two after he had the world forget who he was. So nobody knew who he was. He's starting over from scratch. Ned and MJ, they forgot who they was. They went off to college. They doing their college thing. She ended up with a new boyfriend. He ended up working with the police chief or commissioner, whoever the hell she was. I don't know what she was. And he had run-ins with Punisher. They never got into what their actual run-in was. They talked about it, but you ain't need to see it. They just knew each other and was familiar with each other by both of them being street-level heroes and not like world saving, jumping into outer space, fighting whole government type heroes. So that's what I like best about Spider-Man Brand New Day. It was street level, got to see Peter starting over from scratch, had his own little apartment. He had to move from a smaller apartment to a bigger apartment. He was like figuring his own equipment, stitching together his own suit. So it was a real humble rendition of Spider-Man without having to go back and tell his whole origin story of how he got bit, how he made the costume, how he discovered that he got powers, so and so. So that's the best thing I liked about Spider-Man Brand New Day, that it wasn't over the top. It was grounded, street level, and you got to see a more humane side of Peter Parker, and it wasn't just him fucking up, making jokes, trying to keep his friends safe. That wasn't the whole movie. So we're going to jump right into the 5 categories. So with Spider-Man Brand New Day, the first box we're going to check off is story. Like I said, I love the story because it wasn't over the top. They didn't try to outdo No Way Home, where they threw in Doctor Strange and they had a whole lot of him doing out-of-body experiences. They didn't bring in the other Peters from other realities. They didn't, try to show Ned using a sling ring, suggesting that he had mystical powers. It was just basically him doing his thing around the city, stopping crime, stopping these little low-level criminals that was popping up: Tarantula, Scorpion, Tombstone, just basically saving the neighborhood, running into the Punisher, until the bigger threat came in, where they brought in Jean Grey and she was hopping through bodies trying to find her sister. So I like that. That's the whole story was about him being a normal young adult. No, he got shit wrong. He could have helped Jean Grey. Instead, he ended up, turning her in and getting her caught. And then he did what he had to do to free her. And he had the little emotional moment where when she was in his mind, he let his memory of Aunt May basically speak to Jean because her parents were gone or dead and her sister was gone. So she was dealing with all this grief and anger. And what better person to talk to about it is the person that he went to express all his feelings about grief and anger, which was his aunt. So I like that part of the story. And of course, you got the Punisher in there. He brought a lot of action, and there was a lot of back and forth between the tough guy and the wisecracking knucklehead. So that added to the story. It added to the feel of the movie and the tone that the director was shooting for. It was a lot of action in there, but it was also a lot of heartfelt moments where as though you could tell that this guy was just by himself with no security net, no nothing, just trying to be the best hero that he could be, in spite of everything that he had to give away to keep those closest to him safe. The next box we checking off is characters. Now the characters in the movie, like I said, they brought back, the three main characters, Peter, Ned, and MJ. They've been the staple characters from the start. So I like how they brought them back, but they put them in different settings to where as though they didn't feel like the same goofy teenage characters that were in high school. Tom Holland did an amazing job because he's older. Let Peter Parker be older. You could see it in his face. You could see it in his performance. MJ, she wasn't as weird and kooky as they made her in the last movies, to where as though she was obsessed with death and doing a lot of, just kooky shit that they wrote in for her. Like I said, she was going to college. She didn't want to join whatever soldier's company that they alluded to. And she actually showed that she was smarter or just as smart as her two friends. When Peter was talking about some kind of device and she, well, you do this, that, and the third, which they never alluded to in none of the other movies. So Yeti and No Way Home, they said they all four of them was trying to get into MIT, but you never really saw MJ use her brain to fix devices or even manipulate anything, unless I missed it. I know they was on the debate team, but other than that, you never really saw her use her ingenuity. That's what I'm looking for. Use her ingenuity, help to fix a problem that was going on throughout the movie. So I like how they threw that in there for MJ. They had Ned obsessed with the Spidey tracker, so as though he was tracking Spider-Man's every movements and trying to figure out who he was, which was something Ned would have did. Like he said, Spider-Man was always saving them. So he, in his mind, had told him that Spider-Man either knew who they were or Spider-Man was always around somewhere where they were in order to save him. I like how they threw that in there, and they added to Ned's original character as being Spider-Man's best friend and always wanting to help him. The Punisher, of course, the Punisher was the Punisher. He did what he did. They kind of downplayed him for the movie to where as though he was he wasn't as hardcore as he was in his film or in his movies. He wasn't, stomping people on the curb or blowing whole heads off and chopping off limbs. They really toned him down to kind of play off of Spider-Man dorkiness and his knucklehead antics, to where as though he was just a pest to Spider-Man because he wanted to do more than Spider-Man was doing. So I like how they threw that in there. Then of course Jean Grey. They don't talk about, I've never seen none of the X-Men movies where they mention Jean Grey's sister. So I like how they threw her sister in there from the comic books, but they changed the backstory for both of them. Because I can't remember what happened to her in the comic books, but I know Jean Grey does have a sister that goes on to do a whole lot of stuff. And they alluded to that she was killed off, but they didn't really say that she died. So who knows if she's going to come back later on, or it's just going to be an ongoing thing where as though get glimpses of her sister when Marvel finally bring the X-Men to the movies. And Sadie Sink was a good character to play Jean. Everything I see Sadie Sink in, she does a good job. From, of course, Stranger Things. I think she was in The Whale. She was in another movie I saw. I can't think of the name of it though, but she always does a great job in everything that she's in. So I'm glad they let her stretch her superhero chops with this movie. I hope they just don't give her I'm gonna touch my head and move things around and read your mind. I hope they give her a lot more action scenes to where as though you can see her fighting and doing a whole lot of other stuff other than passive abilities. All in all, and the Hulk, they threw the Hulk in there. Bruce Banner was Bruce Banner. And even when he turned into the Hulk, he was the Savage Hulk, because when he was no more Bruce Banner, which he's been contained for so long that now that he's finally out, I'm curious to see, are they going to be able to put him back? Are they going to be able to even subdue the Hulk or Bruce Banner enough to where as though Bruce had control over the Hulk again? Because even though they showed it at the end, not at the end, they showed the news report of Bruce Banner being driven away in an ambulance. They really didn't show him actually being in the ambulance. So I'm just wondering if when the Hulk let go of the building, he actually converted back to Bruce Banner, or he just remembered who Peter was and decided to stop fighting him and just let go and then go on about his business. So as far as those main characters, Peter, Ned, MJ, Punisher, Hulk, and Jean Grey, they did an excellent job of showing the characters, developing them as better characters as they were in the other previous films. The next box we're going to get into is pacing. The movie did a good job at pacing because it didn't feel like it was fight after fight after fight after fight. There's moments when they slowed down. You got to see Peter dealing with the consequences of people not remembering him. You know, he stayed close to Ned and MJ. He watched them from a distance. When their paths crossed, he was able to follow Ned to the apartment, see how they were living, interact with them as strangers at their party, and see that, you know, even though they don't remember who he was, they still treated him as a friend and not as an enemy. Even when Jean Grey got into MJ's mind to trick Peter into kissing her, he was so happy that she remembered him that he forgot that Jean Grey had the ability to get into minds. He thought once he trapped her on a helicopter that was it. So I like how they just slowed that down, gave you these little humble moments where he had to deal with real life street level shit. So as though he just wasn't a superhero throughout the entire, I think, 2 hours and 20 minutes. He wasn't a superhero through the whole thing. He was superhero, normal person, superhero shit, normal person. You know, it was divided up to where as though you just wasn't watching a superhero movie. You was watching a young man navigate through life the best way he could with no help and nobody remembering who he was. And plus, his body was changing. Call it puberty or call it whatever you want, but I thought he was going to turn into the 6-armed spider thing. But instead, he was able to shoot organic weapon now, and his senses were heightened even more than they already were. So I like how they showed that he had to deal with that. The action sequences, when they did have action, it was all action. It wasn't, you know, a bunch of action and comedy mixed together to where as though you ain't know if you should laugh or just be enthralled. You ain't know if you should laugh or be just fascinated with the action. The next box we checking is entertainment. Was this shit entertaining? Hell yeah. It's Spider-Man, hella entertaining. Tom Holland was the best person they could cast for this role. He's been a terrific Spider-Man since day one. What was it? Civil War. He came out in Civil War. He's been an excellent Spider-Man since Civil War. Every movie he's been in been blockbusters. Every movie he's been in had a phenomenal storyline, and he brought a lot to the character every time he played it. Whether he was a goofy high school kid to the guy dealing with, you know, the emotional stress of his aunt dying, and now in this one, nobody knowing who he was and his body changing. It was hella entertaining. The Punisher came and did what he needed to do, add to the storyline the way he could. Ned and MJ being his friends, being his tether to like reality. They did that thing by bringing in that emotional support. Even though they were fascinated and surprised that he was Spider-Man, they still didn't treat him like he was a superhero. They treated him like he was just Peter or Maynard or whatever he said his name was. So I think it was entertaining, and it was one of the best Marvel movies that came out in a while. Because I ain't gonna say they've been slipping, but it's been a drop in entertainment since Endgame. I'm trying to think what came out between Endgame and now, other than Thunderbolts. I know there's been a lot of TV series, but I'm trying to think of what Marvel movie's been between Endgame and Thunderbolts. Black Panther, but Black Panther is Black Panther. I don't even throw that into Marvel because both Black Panther films didn't really touch on like the larger, broader Marvel universe. They were just their own little secluded films that dealt with the Black Panther and everything going on with the Black Panther. It ain't linked to the multiverse. It ain't linked to, you know, the Infinity Stones, what was going on. Both movies was just Black Panther 1 and Black Panther 2. One was just had Chadwick Boseman and the other one had Letitia Wright. But this one right here, Spider-Man Brand New Day, hella entertaining, hella action, hella emotional parts. I was invested from the start to the end. Even when I sat around for that fucking end credit, it was like, okay, y'all done had me here this long, I might as well sit around for this end credit. Even though the end credit ain't really mean shit other than connecting to the multiverse or whatever they about to do with, or Secret Wars, if they all gonna make Battle World. Lastly, we got production. I think we did 5. This might be 5. So lastly, we got production. The production on Spider-Man Brand New Day, you can tell that they really stuck to practical stunts. I know I saw a lot of trailers and behind the scenes shit of Peter doing Well, not, I don't know if it was actually Tom Holland, but they actually had the stuntman hooked up the wires, actually doing a web swinging and all that other shit. So you can really tell that, you can really see that in the film. What's the name? The director, I can't even say it, Destin Daniel Craig, whatever his name is, even though I didn't say it 2 different ways the first time. The director really is a good director when it comes to action. So, not Chung-Li, what the hell is the name of that damn thing? Anyway, the guy with the 10 rings. I can't think what the fuck his name is. So, yeah, even with the 10 rings, he did a good job with all the action and the fight scenes in the 10 rings. So, these action scenes, even though Spider-Man didn't do a lot of kung fu and fighting, he's basically flipping and using his webs and, ballet, what the fuck is that shit called? He used his webs and his flexibility, acrobatics, that's what I was looking for, fucking acrobatics. He used his webs and his acrobatics pretty much to defeat all his enemies. Yeah, he got strength, but most of the people that he's fighting are just regular people. So he kind of has to pull his punches, because if you can rip a car door off, you can easily rip a man's arm off or punch through their chest. Shit like that. So it really showed that he's not just getting in there fighting it out as a brawler. He actually trying to stop these criminals with no lethal force. Put it like that. I wouldn't say as less lethal force, but he's really trying to stop these criminals and not hurt them. If they get hurt in the process, that's something that's of their own making. But normally when Spider-Man is fighting, he's basically trying to detain him, restrain him, and leave him somewhere for the police to pick up and let the police handle their job. So when you saw the fight scenes with Spider-Man, he has a lot of maneuvers that basically just are meant to restrain the person and just hold him in place until somebody else can come and take him away. Since they were filming in real locations, all the scenes felt like grounded and real, to as though it wasn't like a sound stage somewhere on the lot, and they had to put stuff in the back of the buildings to really give it like a boxed in feel, to as though you couldn't see none of the rest. You couldn't see the rest of the city. I like the production. There wasn't a lot of CGI other than, the Incredible Hulk and the things Jean Grey was able to do with her mind, and of course the bullshit like gunfire and him ripping out shit and being stuck in spiderwebs. But the production was good. It really felt like visceral, and it felt like it was like a real life. The sets felt like they were in actual cities. It might not have been New York exactly. You could tell that these scenes were actually shot in real locations. All in all, my thoughts for Spider-Man Brand New Day, was it worth it? Check off the boxes. Story, check. Story was good. Characters, check. All the characters were memorable. You're not gonna forget them. Entertainment, good. Good as entertainment. Pacing, good. And for the final one, production was good. Wasn't watered down. It wasn't campy. Low budget. Of course it wasn't low budget, but all 5 of them, I get it's a 5 out of 5. So if you ask me, was it worth it? I say Spider-Man Brand New Day was definitely worth it. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. If you like this type of content, like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one.